Ugly Duckling Oboes is dedicated to the development of young oboe players. They provide quality handmade oboe reeds, private lessons, and high-quality oboe sales, rentals, and consignments. The oboes that they rent are conservatory mechanism oboes that include the left-hand F key and low B flat key. All are maintained by oboe-specific technicians. In-person lessons are available, as well as virtual lessons for students who live outside the geographic area or have transportation and scheduling challenges. They also offer online college audition coaching for high school juniors and seniors who plan to audition to be music majors. Visit uglyducklingoboes.com for more details on how you can set up yourself for success and sign up for their newsletter. That's uglyducklingoboes.com.
Chemical City Double Reeds is a full-service double reed shop specializing in the sale of instruments, cane, accessories, and sheet music. Double Reed Dish listeners can enjoy free shipping with code DRDISH. Visit them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or online at www.chemicalcityreeds.com.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jacqui Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
a podcast for oboists,
bassoonists,
and the people who love them.
So, I've got some questions here. We thought a fun idea for the dish today could be subjecting Galit to bassoon-specific trivia to see how much she knows about our side of the double reed world. Now, on the next episode, she's going to return the favor, and I'm going to have to answer oboe trivia. I'm not scared, because I did teach in a double reed position for 5 years. So if I don't know anything, that'll be a little, questionable.
And I feel like it's generally true that oboists notoriously know less about everyone else because we're just all about ourselves.
Well, I'm not going to touch that, but I am going to test you.
I'm so scared.
On your bassoon knowledge. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I tried to come up with things from all over. So, let's just dig in. Name, please, Galit, 5 brands of bassoons.
Okay. Heckle.
1.
Mooseman.
2.
Bell.
3.
Pukner.
4.
Yamaha.
5. Yes. Good job. Okay. Question 1, and you're nailing it.
I'm nailing it.
Name 2 bassoon sonatas that were not composed by Camille Saint-Saëns.
God, I was gonna say Saint-Saëns. Okay. This first name that comes to mind is Uberdu, and that is not right.
Not that I know of. No, I'm not the biggest rep head, so I hope that I have correct answers for my trivia questions.
Sonata that's not Saint-Saëns.
2 sonatas that are not Saint-Saëns.
Not Saint-Saëns.
I'll take even 1, but
I really was thinking Saint-Saëns. What is that one? It starts with an O or something. Osborne. No, that's a Rhapsody.
Not a sonata. I'll give you one more guess.
Poulenc.
No. He died before he got to our sonata.
Dang.
We did not get a sonata from Poulenc. The clarinet one killed him.
What? Name some.
Foch, Hurlstone, Gould. You can't take those now. What is the lowest note on the bassoon?
Is it a low A?
It is not a low A. It's a low B flat, though. You're close.
literally the same as oboe. Literally the same.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Literally
okay.
the same as oboe. You're right.
This is fun. Give me another one.
Listen, technically we can play a low A, but we have to put in the PVC extension.
That's what I meant.
It is not. I'm calling your bluff. Okay. Name 5 standard orchestral excerpts for the bassoon. Now listen, I'm divesting from a concept of standard, but for the sake of well-known bassoon trivia, we're going to delve into that.
Oh, I got this. Beethoven 4.
Yes.
Marriage of Figaro.
Yes.
Tchaikovsky 6.
Yes.
That's 3. Tchaikovsky 4.
Yes.
Scheherazade.
Very good. Yeah. Very good. In what key is the Mozart bassoon concerto?
Oh no. F?
It is not F.
B flat.
B flat is correct. Yes. Weber's an F.
I was just gonna keep adding flat.
A flat. A flat. B flat.
That was my plan.
Okay. What is a balance hanger?
It's a thing you wear to enable you to play standing.
I'll give you half a point.
It's a thing you wear.
It's a thing your bassoon wears.
Oh. Oops.
It changes the angle and weight distribution of when playing. You were in the same like galaxy as the correct answer.
Okay. I'm just like, can you stand? Great.
Name 3 pieces for the bassoon by women and or BIPOC individuals.
Okay. 5 Sacred Trees.
That is by John Williams, but it was composed for a woman.
Okay. Okay. By women or BIPOC. Famous bassoon pieces.
They don't have to be like super famous. We have work to do in that area.
Is there anything by Valerie Coleman?
Technically, that include the bassoon, yes.
Oh, but we're talking about like bassoon centric.
Ideally, I would be willing to give you part of a point for knowing that Valerie Coleman composes, and then coincidentally, she has works that include the bassoon. I think that's like 0.25 of a point.
Jenny Brandon?
Yes, Jenny Brandon has many works for the bassoon.
Okay, something about colored stones.
There you go.
Thank
Jenny
you.
Brandon colored stone.
Thank you, TK.
You got one.
Posting your practice videos so that piece is in my head. Okay, Jenny Brandon colored stones.
There's another member of Amani Winds who composed a bassoon solo.
Jeff Scott.
Yes, Jeff Scott has a piece, Elegy for Innocence. And also there's a composer that you love very much.
Rena Esmail?
Yes.
How did you know she's my absolute number 1 favorite?
Okay, I had to help you. I had to lead the horse to water, but she did drink, people.
Bassoon community, I love you, and I'm so sorry.
Okay, I'm going to end this with a nice softball right down the center of home plate. I don't know if that's a real baseball analogy.
If it's a softball, it's softball analogy.
Well, see, I'm hoping this is an easy question to end on. Name 3 brands of bassoon cane. Now, there's some overlap, so you're free to draw from the overlap.
Bonazza?
Yes.
Is that something? Okay. Bonazza. Donzi?
Yes.
And Rigatti.
There you go. Good job. I'd say you have a familiarity with the bassoon.
Oh, bassoonist, I'm so sorry. Oh, oboists were the worst.
Well, you can start scheming what oboe questions you're gonna make me answer.
Okay. I'm going to have to dig deep because you are very familiar.
I try my best.
If anyone has any ideas of how I can stump Jacqui on an oboe related trivia question, please send them my way.
Yeah, give her some help.
Mm-hmm.
Hey oboists! Have you ever found it difficult to sort out when and how to find a new oboe or English horn? Oboe Chicago streamlines the process, providing personal and professional consultation and a large selection of lovely instruments. The process feels comfortable and thorough. Selection includes Affleray of Paris, Howarth of London, Covey Oboes, and Fox products. For a current listing of Oboe Chicago's selection, please visit www.oboechicago.com. For a credit of $100 towards shipping, mention Double Reed Dish when you call or email Shauna. That's oboechicago.com.
Janet Ingle loves the oboe. She has built her business on providing high-quality handmade reeds, education, and a sympathetic ear to oboists across the country. When you order from Janet Ingle Reeds, you get prompt communication, reeds or cane handcrafted to your specifications, and cheerful, friendly customer service. All orders are mailed within 1 week, sometimes much faster. Single orders or monthly read subscriptions are welcome, and she'll work with you to find the combination of response, resistance, stability, and flexibility that is right for you. Janet doesn't just do reeds either. Look at janetingle.com for a selection of reed cases, swabs, and tools, or for reed making videos, classes, and boot camps. Podcast listeners can use the code DISH for 10% off their first order at janetingle.com.
We are delighted to welcome to Double Reed Dish Jaren Atherholt, Assistant Professor of Oboe at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We love to start by letting our listeners get to know our guests by talking about how they began their journey on their instrument. So when did you start to play the oboe and how did you come to the instrument?
I started playing the oboe when I was 9 in the 4th grade. Basically, that was the year that we were allowed to pick an instrument for a band or orchestra. And my father had been in band and he had played the saxophone. So he wanted me to be in band, but he wanted me to play the oboe because he liked the duck in Peter and the Wolf. And he felt like it would be not that many people would play. And so it would be an opportunity for me to travel. I grew up in Fairbanks, Alaska, and he wanted me to be able to travel outside the state and kind of see the world, quote unquote. And he thought the oboe might be my ticket.
What led you to decide that the oboe was going to be your career?
So we went on a family vacation to New York City, and I called the Metropolitan Opera box office and left a message and said, I'm from Alaska and I'd like to take a lesson with the principal oboist. And Elaine Duvos called me back, and I took a 2-hour, I walked there. It was my floral print dress with shoulder pads and tennis shoes, I walked there with my mom to her apartment overlooking Central Park, and she spent 2 hours with me, and she taught me how to tongue on the wind. She taught me who John Mack was. She taught me about summer festivals, and she taught me about Interlaken. And then I started thinking about going to Interlaken, and so that it was at that. So in the 8th grade kind of is when I was like, okay, I'm going to make this push to try to do this professionally. But then my father was like, absolutely not. You have a high school right here in town. That's perfectly fine. I'm not paying all that money. So then I raised the money in order to go to Interlaken. So I went there for my junior and senior years, and I raised about $25,000 total over the 2 years.
Wow.
But I did that in order to go there because I felt like, Miss Duvos told me I should go.
So, to be so focused at such a young age is a real advantage. And I would anticipate that moving from Alaska to Michigan at such a young age was quite a change. I'd love to hear about that experience. Was it scary or were you so hungry for the experience? Like, I guess, what was that like?
I remember sitting on the plane and, people sitting, I was just waiting for the person next to me to ask me where I was going. I'm going to Interlochen. It's like college, but I'm in high school. Like I was so excited. I felt so independent and
You're
so
like wearing your oboe on your back and you're like, ask me what this is.
yeah. No, I had a custom backpack made by dog mush, like the people that make clothing for dog mushers. They made me like a backpack. And my favorite color was turquoise. And I wanted a turquoise oboe bag. And they were like, no, we think you should have black. So they embroidered my name in turquoise on the backpack.
Oh, do you still have it? You still have it, right?
I think I do actually. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's turbo strength. Like it's for like 5 below zero or whatever.
Like I want one of those.
Yeah. So I was super, super excited, but I was also like really nervous. I was nervous to not be in Alaska anymore. They have a bus at Interlochen that takes you to Traverse City once a week to go shopping at the mall. This was like a huge thing for me. I was like, Traverse City is such a big city and I'm going to the mall. We didn't have a mall. Like I loved those trips to the mall. But I also like I said earlier, it's just like there was something inside of me driving me. Like I knew that there could be a better situation out there for me and I could feel better and feel safe and feel good about myself and the work that I was doing. And so I was just willing to brave anything really in pursuit of that.
So this question is a little bit of a left from where we usually go from here, but you're talking about this really strong sense of self-motivation and personal empowerment through music. And I would love to know how that affects your teaching since you're now in a teaching position at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts.
Yeah, I mean, it's really completely what I'm all about. I'm all about inspiring the kids to do great work and feel good about that. I feel one of my main themes in my life is if you work really hard and keep working really hard, it will work out. Something will work out because has been the story for me. And I realize more and more that we all come from different backgrounds and our stories are all different and the journey is different for all of us. And some people have a harder journey than others do. And that's real. But I do think that if the focus is on the work and you love what you're doing, I do think that it's possible for things to work out. The students, there's such a importance placed on achieving and what does that mean to achieve something. And I think it's just so much more fulfilling to put the focus on the journey.
So from Interlochen, could you walk us through your journey a little bit and how you got to where you are today?
When I was auditioning for schools, I auditioned for 6 schools and I got into Cleveland, where Mr. Mack was teaching. And I loved Mr. Mack and we worked really well together. And being in Cleveland was hard. It was a hard transition from Interlochen. It was way more of a city environment. I was in Alaska and then in Michigan in the woods, at Interlochen. And then moving to Cleveland was like a big transition for me. And I was working first in a coffee shop and then in a restaurant the entire time that I was in Cleveland because I had to make money. And so, I loved my time with Mr. Mack and I loved how he taught. And it was just a really incredible relationship in my life. And I got to the end of my 4 years and he was like, well, there's this man named Robert Atherholt and he teaches at Rice. And I had never heard of him. I'd never heard of Rice. And he was like, he has a really beautiful Mozart concerto that was just released, and take a listen. And I've had a lot of students go there and be really successful there. So I auditioned, and I went to Rice. And the motivator behind that decision was, in Texas, the public schools require their students to take private lessons. So I knew that I could make money teaching oboe rather than waiting tables. And so that was a huge factor in my decision. And so I went to Rice for my master's, and I absolutely loved it there. The whole program at Rice was completely orchestrally driven. And, my goal had always been, pretty much since the 8th grade, to be principal oboe of a full-time symphony orchestra. So going to Rice really was a program that fit that goal. I loved working with Mr. Atherholt, and I loved working with the entire faculty. They were it was like they were a team there to support the students through the audition process, which is a really challenging, difficult process to go through. The other thing about being at Rice was that, I would walk down the halls and like, so-and-so walked by who just got into Aspen, and so-and-so walked by who just made the finals at the Met, and so-and-so just got a job with the Florida Orchestra, and I wanted that in my education. I wanted that sense of intensity and that sense of competition. Mm-hmm. I was a competitive person, and I felt like I thrived in that. And so being at Rice, it was a lot. Like, I felt like really anxious pretty much all the time, but I also wanted that, and I felt like I needed that. And then I ended up getting my first job with the Sarasota Opera while I was in my second year at Rice. So amazingly, the school let me take a semester off. And so I did fall semester of my second year, and then spring semester I played in Sarasota Opera. And then I came back to Rice for a third year to finish. And at the end of that third year, I went back to Sarasota, and then I won my first full-time job in New Orleans that spring, which was like a huge gift.
Which was where I had the pleasure of meeting you for the first time.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what you've learned in the audition process? I imagine that there's a lot of, I know there's a lot of pressure, but to fulfill your childhood dream since the 8th grade seems like a whole nother level of self-pressure. So talk to us about how you handled the audition experience and what made you so successful.
That's so funny, because I don't feel that I've been so successful. It's nice to hear outsiders' perspective, because, the voices in my head tell such a different story.
Those voices are so mean.
Yeah, bad neighborhood up there. Okay, so it goes back to that like inner self drive, where there was just something inside of me that I knew that, first of all, on a larger level, playing the oboe and playing music was what I was supposed to be doing. It just felt right. I didn't even have to think about it. Any kind of risk my teachers wanted me to take, like audition for this festival or enter this competition, of course, it wasn't a second thought that I would do it. Even if I was super nervous about it, I, of course, was going to do it. And that was kind of how I felt about auditions. I started taking auditions my first year of my master's degree. And I advanced about half the time. And I was mainly just only advancing to the semifinals. And I had studied with John Mack, so obviously I didn't need any reed help. And then finally, Mr. Atherholt said, "Get your reed," and he was like, "Horrible." And so I had been hiding the fact that I was a really bad reed maker. I would order reeds from Forest Double Reeds in California when I was in Alaska, and it was like 40 below zero up there, and the reeds would get up there, and I would just, force them to work. And so then when I approached reed making, it was like, I had no, my mentality was like, just force it to work as quick as possible so I can get my,
Just like muscle through it.
yeah, muscle through it so I can get back to, oh, this works good enough. Now I can go back to practicing. Like I was all
Right.
about playing, and I just didn't want to spend a lot of time at the read desk. So, so he like finally figured out that my reads were horrible. I mean, they were very bad. He,
I'm
like,
just laughing because it's such a funny little secret.
Yeah. Oh, not that funny. It caused a lot of pain. But he said to me, like, why don't you come to my house and watch me make reads before my orchestra week? And I was like, okay. And so I started going to his house and watching him prepare for the week with the Houston Symphony. And then he started saying, why don't you now make a read in front of me? Oh, that was so nerve-wracking. And so I started making reads in front of him. And like that is one of my biggest pieces of advice I have for students is number one, show your reads to your teacher regularly.
Oof.
And that includes showing your teacher your knife, especially for oboe players. Like, in fact, have your teacher scrape your reed with your knife. Because if they can't, then there's no reason that you would be able to scrape your reed with your knife. And then number two, scrape your reeds in front of your teacher. It's really nerve-wracking at first, but you do get used to it. And it's so helpful because we sit at that read desk alone and all of a sudden we start doing something that we don't realize we're doing. And then 2 weeks later, we're like down this path that we have no idea how we got down there, you know? And if somebody's watching you make your reads, they might be like, why are you leaving the plaque in so long? Or you're like hardly ever sharpening your knife, or, you know, you should take more off the tip earlier, or whatever, like whatever the little.
I didn't realize you were left-handed.
Oh, that would be another one. Yeah. So, yeah. So then once that process started, then he realized my knife was not sharp. And then he taught me how to sharpen my knife. And then I went to New Orleans and I made the finals, and then I won the audition. And I don't want to say it like, oh, like if you have a sharp knife, you'll win an audition. It did play a huge factor in making a read that I think contributed to the fact that I won that audition. But I think auditions are a much bigger topic than the sharpness of your knife. However, the sharpness of your knife is important.
I've heard this saying before that the best read will win the audition. Do you think that's true?
I do think that there is truth to that. It's more than that, but yes.
So, how did you find yourself transitioning to UNCSA, and talk to us about your journey in finding yourself there?
Yeah. So again, like my whole dream, I never imagined myself as a professor. My whole dream was always just playing in the orchestra. And after I got to New Orleans, that same like motivation from inside me that was pushing me to take auditions also was there pushing me to like reach out a hand of help to young people that maybe were in a situation like mine, so that music could be an outlet and a source of safety and a source of self-esteem and identity and all of those things that it was for me. So I got to New Orleans and I moved there the second year after Katrina, and there was like very little organized music education going on. The city was completely devastated and destroyed. And so I went around searching for students. I found 2 students that lived an hour away from where I was living. And I would drive to their house every week. And it turned out, of course, that they did not have working oboes. And so I drove all around Louisiana finding oboes in like people's basements and in band rooms, and collecting the oboes that I felt like could work, and like trying to help these kids like get on a better footing with the oboe. And I just say that story because it was, again, it was just like in me. I wasn't like, it was like, I didn't even think about it. It was just something that I did in addition to playing in the orchestra. And so I was always like creating projects and being involved in education. I started teaching at Tulane. The kids there didn't even know what a woodwind quintet was. They didn't know how to set up. They didn't know. And so I started a chamber music program there. And I was just always doing projects like that. And I was also taking a lot of auditions, and I was doing okay. And I started getting asked to play with larger orchestras as like a guest principal oboist. And so I was doing that. And, my husband and I had been there for a while. I guess we'd been there maybe 10 years 10 years. I had been there 10 years. He had been there 11 years. And we started feeling like, it might be time for a change. New Orleans is awesome. I love New Orleans. But I was looking for a change. And so I had been taking a lot of auditions, and then this position like randomly came open. Galit, you probably remember, it was like kind of surprising when we found out that the position was open. And so I talked to my father-in-law about it, my teacher, and he said, it's a great job. You might as well just go for it. And I had never created a CV, and I didn't know how to create a cover letter or anything like that. So I had to reach out for help. And I will say my Rice professors were really there for me, and they really helped me prepare the materials that are needed for this kind of a audition process, because it's so different than orchestra. And so I just took it one step at a time. And, my husband was super supportive, and it was just kind of like, let's see. And then they wanted to talk to me on the phone. And so I had never done an interview like that before. And so we did that. And then they wanted to bring me onto campus. And I was playing the Flower Clock Concerto in New Orleans around the same time. And I said, like, would it be okay for me to play this concerto? The piano part is horrendous. I felt so bad. But they had a pianist who was willing to do it, Robert Rocco. He's really great. And so I played the recital with that on it. Mm-hmm. And I did the whole day of interviewing and the teaching. And and then that's what happened. And so they offered me the position, but I was playing a concerto. I was going to be playing the Bach double in New Orleans. And we were going on tour to Carnegie Hall, and a dear, dear friend and patron of the LPO had just announced he would be endowing the principal oboe chair. And so I felt like it wasn't a time really to leave the orchestra. So for the first year, I did both positions, and my father-in-law came to UNCSA and taught several weeks while I was playing in the orchestra. And that was a crazy year, but it was also very exciting. And the students got exposed to Bob Atherholt, which was really cool. And he also did master classes for like the entire double reeds. And then he also was sitting in on orchestra rehearsals and chamber music. And it was exciting for the school, I think. And then the next year, I stopped playing in the orchestra, and I moved to North Carolina full time.
Tell us about your chamber music group, Lyrica Baroque. And then I also want you to talk about the NOLA Chamber Fest, which is such a wonderful project that you and Lyrica Baroque have gotten off the ground.
Okay, so like I said, I was doing a lot of projects in New Orleans, and one of them was chamber music. I was very, very privileged to go to a summer festival called the Marlborough Music Festival. And I learned a lot about what chamber music can be. And I think many people who go to Marlborough like want to recreate Marlborough in their real lives in some way. It's just such a magical place. So that was kind of the inspiration behind starting this chamber music organization. Lyrica Baroque started kind of as an ensemble, and it's evolved into really a nonprofit organization that is doing chamber music projects in New Orleans. And one of those projects is NOLA Chamber Fest, which is a festival and competition. And Galit is one of our judges this year, which we're super excited about. And it's really great. There's a lot to talk about in terms of entrepreneurship and starting a nonprofit organization and all of that, which I know y'all know from starting your podcast. And tell me if you agree with me that it's a good idea to make sure you believe in what you're doing. That's like key. And then start small. And it brings me back to what I said before of like, it takes hard work over a long period of time. If you work really hard for a year, things will happen, but it's more than that. And that's why you really have to believe in what you're doing, because otherwise it's too much. It's too hard to do if you don't, really feel passionately about what you're doing.
You have to have a really good reason.
I think so. Yeah.
Can you talk to us about some favorite memories that stand out in your mind as you look back over the course of your career?
So I'm going to say that one like really amazing memory, and it's many memories, is playing second oboe to Mr. Atherholt in the Grand Teton Music Festival.
Oh my God,
played
that's
next
so
to him,
cool.
yeah, for 6 years, and I learned so much. And just that experience, because I had been in the hall in Jones Hall in Houston and heard him play in the orchestra many times, and his sound was huge, like huge. And then sitting next to him and hearing like the intimacy of his playing and having that realization of like how to do that, how to play really intimately, but have it project so big in the hall, was very inspiring. And I loved those summers playing with him. A super embarrassing memory is I was at Music Academy of the West getting ready for a masterclass with Cindy D'Almeida. And I was in the bathroom getting ready, doing my hair, and I had my reed in my mouth for some reason. And I dropped the reed down the sink. Now, y'all know I'm not a good reed maker, okay? So I went and got the property manager and got him to take apart the sink to get my reed out.
It went down the drain.
Yeah, it went down the drain into that little loop thing.
It went into the U-bend under the sink.
Yeah, this isn't a dorm. This is a public This isn't a private bathroom in my dorm room. This is the public hall bathroom that all the ladies share. So the plumber came and got my readout, and I was like, oh, thank God. And then I just soaked it in whatever, hydrogen peroxide or something. And then I went and played. And then she was like, someone told me that you dropped this down a sink. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, that's nasty. In the masterclass, she was like, that's disgusting. I was like, I didn't have another read. So again, it's good to be prepared. Yeah. That was gross. I can't believe I did that. And did I learn my lesson to ask for help with reed making? No. Like I said, I didn't show reed 12 years later.
That is so funny.
It's embarrassing.
Oh. So you mentioned Bob Atherholt's incredible ability to play intimately and softly and have it project through the hall. And I would love to dig a little deeper into that. What can you tell us about that skill? And I imagine, my guess is that it has something to do with focus in the sound and not overblowing, but just finding that perfect center of the sound. Am I right? Tell me more.
I remember like one of the, I guess, perks of dating my teacher's son was that he would come to New Orleans and hear the orchestra, and I would get a lot of great feedback.
Yeah.
And one of the first times he came, we were playing Beethoven violin concerto, and he came up to me afterwards, and I was like, "What do you think?" And he was like, "Jaren, there's a difference between playing loud and projecting." And then he turned around and walked away, and I was like, "What does that mean? What does that mean?" And so like I I started thinking about it, and that's why I say, like, when I would sit next to him, I started like putting it together. And Mr. Atherholt is all about resonance and ring and color. And the way that we achieve that is having a reed that's balanced, responsive, vibrant, and not loose, so that we can not have to manipulate the reed. Any kind of lip pressure dampening the reed is going to dampen resonance, ring, and color. And that is literally the secret. So, I think that there's this misconception of like, I need to make this big, huge, beefy reed so that I can be heard and so that my sound is dark. And he really helped me to see the light, like to trust. It's hard to let go. It's like I want to cling to that reed because it gives me this sense of control, and it gives me this sense of like comfort or something. But letting go, like truly letting go and just letting the reed vibrate, is the secret to great projection and really a beautiful sound and great playing, all of that. Now, it has to go together with a great stream of air. And he was obsessed with that as well. And so the great stream of air has to do with the inhale and then also with the exhale. And so that, that's definitely, if you have like a beautiful reed, but you don't know how to support, there's really no point. You're still going to have to use lip pressure to try to get the sound out. So the two have to go together. And for people who are maybe working on their embouchure or something, I have worked on my embouchure my whole career, because I told you I just started getting those reeds to work at 40 below zero, whatever I had to do. And so I've been trying to unlearn that for like 25 years, but it's impossible to truly play with an embouchure that's off the reed if you don't have a reed that will facilitate that, or if you don't have an airstream that will facilitate that. So like they all kind of have to work together. So to those of you out there that are have that voice in your head being like, don't bite, biting's bad, don't bite, biting's bad, if you don't have a reed that allows you not to bite, then don't be so hard on yourself. Like, we got to do what we got to do. And work with your teacher in terms of all three components: you, the oboe, the reed. The sound comes from equally all three components. So they kind of have to work together when you're making a change like that.
Oh, that is brilliant. I love that.
I wanted to ask about, I know that you practice yoga and how that physically and mentally has impacted your oboe playing, if it has.
Yeah. So the kind of yoga that I practice is called Ashtanga yoga, and it's all about a set sequence of poses that gets your heart rate up, and you learn how to breathe slowly through that. And so I started doing it because it kind of directly helped me with my anxiety. Like when my heart rate would rise for an audition, I could figure out how to breathe deeply and slowly, even under that extreme pressure. It's like the kind of yoga where you show up, there's a 3-hour time block, and you just show up to the space and you start your own practice, and the teacher walks around and gives individual instruction. And I really liked that. It resonated with me, kind of like oboe playing. So I loved that. And there was a wonderful teacher in New Orleans, Melanie Fowler, who I practiced with all the time. She was my teacher. And I even took a training with her, and I started teaching classes at her studio. And like, there was like a community, that built up around that. And I really loved that. And then when I moved to North Carolina, that Ashtanga community does not exist here in Winston-Salem. There's a community in Durham, which is about an hour and 40 minutes away. And then there's one in Charlotte, which is an hour and 30 minutes away. So I was kind of already struggling a little bit. And then the pandemic hit. And so I really haven't felt comfortable going to a yoga class. And so I've been doing yoga by myself. And the reason I'm sharing this is because the qualities in me that are like very competitive and perfectionistic, I have always thought were good qualities in terms of winning an audition. But I've started to realize that those qualities kind of went overboard probably a long time ago and were making it hard for me to live inside my own head. It's like no matter what I did, it was not good enough. And I even said it during this conversation where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you view my career as successful. It's just like the stories that my brain tells me, I don't think I can trust them. And so, letting go of being super perfect at the yoga has been kind of my journey the last 2 years. And it's been really hard for me to let go of it and do it in a way that just feels good and that feels calming and gentle rather than like forced and like disciplined and critical. And interestingly, I think it has changed my playing as well, so that I'm not playing in this way of like, I need this. It's more of like, I have something to share.
I love that so much. It's like the motivations and the coping mechanisms that you adopted as a younger person were really, really helpful to you at that time. And so they're still around, but they're not helping you anymore. They're trying to help you, but it's not helpful anymore. It's hurting you. And so, rethinking your way out of that is really inspiring and difficult, I would imagine, as a person who struggles with my own anxiety.
It's hard to let go of it's just like the read. It's like, I think I crave that feeling of control. But I mean, the reality is we have very little control in general. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so good to keep the focus on the work. And that's the other thing that the yoga does is it's all about just showing up and doing practice. Like just practice yoga, even if it's 10 minutes. And that's been really helpful in my oboe playing and in my teaching as well, of just show up for your instrument every day. Try to be well rested and try to approach it with a positive attitude. And all you can do is your very best in that day. But if you show up for your instrument every day over a long period of time, you will become that player that you've always wanted to be. And then you won't be fearful and you won't be anxious. You'll be excited to share your music.
We usually ask, what is your advice for young people who aspire to have a career like yours? That sounded like it fit that. Is there anything else you would want to add to that in terms of advice to young people?
I would encourage everyone out there to be brave in speaking your truth. And if you speak your truth and someone doesn't hear you, keep speaking it and keep asking for help until you find somebody who can help you.
That is so beautiful. Jaren, this was such a wonderful talk. Thank you so much for generously giving us your time. We really appreciate it.
I know you loved that interview as much as I did. As always, you can send your oboe trivia questions to me at all of our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can listen to us on all of the platforms where you get your podcasts. And of course, we love when we hear from you at doublereaddish@gmail.com. So if you have anything you want to keep away from Jacqui in the subject line, right? Jacqui, don't read this. Who do we have coming up next?
On our next episode, we welcome Alex Davis, bassoonist and founder and artistic director of the Sugar Hill Salon Chamber Music series. Ooh, since I said the artist, it's my turn. Galit, it's time to end this nerve parade.
Go make reeds.
That felt very different.
Yeah, I didn't like it.